What is going on, guys? DBG here, and in this video we are going to be talking about the best cards for MyTEAM Limited. So lads, obviously Limited is not here right now. It is Monday, but I'm going to make this video because, well, we all know what's going to happen. The cards I mentioned in this video are going to spike up in price today. They are probably going to drop by about Wednesday, and then on Friday, depending on what the limited requirements are, they might spike up in price again. So, what I'm going to be talking about here are cards that they'll always have some use in limited. Because the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen really ruby cards and sapphire cards be used. Because it definitely does seem like limited is a mode where they don't want everyone just to go out with their god squads. And that's a great thing. It's a great thing for a lot of people that don't just want to use their incredible players. So I'm going to be talking about guys on both gens. If you're looking at my limited team from this weekend, this was my team right here. I won like 10 games in a row, and none of them were closer than 20 points if they weren't rage quits. Like, absolute dominant performance from this squad right here. So, let's just talk about some players. The first player that not a lot of people know of, and this guy is going to be, if they ever have a limited thing where your player has to be under like 22. Actually, nah, there's no point using it if it's an underage, under a certain age. But if they do ask for sapphires, this is the best sapphire point guard in the game. Especially if you're on next gen. So you're looking at Cole Anthony. His price, what's his price going for? 1 hour. He's actually quite expensive. But I would definitely say, look, if you can manage to find a Cole Anthony for cheap, definitely used to have him in your collection just in case. 2,000 it's a no-brainer just to have him sitting in your collection for that. Because the advantage that he gives you over any other sapphire point guard is huge. So let's have a look at sapphire point guards. Like, yeah, there's D-Rose that a lot of people like. And in fairness, I initially did the exchange for D-Rose. He's almost nothing to do. Like, it's not like it's a difficult exchange in the slightest to do. So if you want a rim running point guard, D-Rose is the guy. But if you want a 300 point guard, it's Cole Anthony at sapphire. The rest of these, nah, just don't. Trust me, just don't. Like, a lot of people will have their Maurice Cheeks in their lineup. The guy can't play offense. Like, just sit off him. He doesn't have a great release. Can't really do anything. The guy cannot play offense. Killian Hayes. I didn't mind Killian Hayes at sapphire, but he's not great. Halliburton, LaMelo Ball. Neither of them are great. But Cole Anthony is that dude. So Cole Anthony, the guy gets gold range extender, and he also gets an 87 3 ball, which is good and pretty okay speed. But if you do, obviously, if you're at sapphire and you want a rim running point guard, D-Rose is the guy for you. Especially if you're on current gen, he's pretty nice, because while he's not the greatest shooter in the world, he's not even a great dunker, but he's still got the hop quick for a step badge, which can blow by a lot of sapphire, so he can be kind of good. But for me anyway, it's a no-brainer that the best sapphire point guard is Cole Anthony. And then I've been using this Chris Middleton, but I mean, this Chris Middleton is better. And this is only if you're on next gen, by the way. Only if you're on next gen, Chris Middleton. If you are on next gen, this guy is a beast. His release is so neise and he greens everything. This is just an upgraded version of the other Chris Middleton. They have the same badges. This one just has upgraded stats. So if you are on next gen, this Chris Middleton is a great player to buy. I would not look at him on current gen though. If you are on current gen, the best center to use, or next gen, no, I think Wiseman's better at sapphire for next gen, but he does evo up higher, and a lot of people will have him evo up higher. But for me, Chris Bosh is the best on either gen. And there's one huge thing that I didn't even notice, that a lot of people were telling me to do this. You get a duo, and the duos don't count for their overalls. Duo makes Bosh a better shooter, and also gives Shane Battier an 88 3 ball. That was one of my regrets, was not using this duo. There was no point doing that. So this duo right here of Chris Bosh and Shane Battier, if you can get both of these guys for cheap, it is going to be an elite limited duo. Because again, we might see a weird week where you're only allowed to have, say, one sapphire card, and it has to be all emeralds. I don't know if that'll happen, but if that does happen, then you've suddenly got these two guys right here. You've got a ruby card and an extra sapphire card. Trevor Ariza is an obvious one. He's an obvious one. Like, great 3 ball, got bronze clamps, good perimeter defense, moderately good speed, really good length. Like, he's got a lot of things going for him, as well as like bronze intimidator. He is a very obvious one. And then we're going to have a look at some of the token rewards. So for me, Deshaun Stevenson and Brian Russell. It doesn't matter what gen you are on, these are the two best. Deshaun Stevenson for me is a step above Brian Russell just because of his release. But he's got an 84 3-ball, really nice release. Yeah, he's got slow speed. But again, we're talking about Sapphires here. We're talking about these weekends in Limited. Interceptor Gold, he's got Clamp Silver. The guy is a beast and he hits wide open. Brian Russell, again, he's got like Scotty. He's like a mini Scotty Pippen. Well, not mini, like a downgraded Scotty. He reminds me a lot of the Amethyst Scotty at the start of the year. So basically, he's got an 84 3-ball. Not the greatest speed as well, but a little bit better. He's 6'8", can play at the 2. As well as that, it comes a Silver Clamp, Silver Heart Crusher. So he's got a lot of things going for him as well. So they're kind of Sapphire players. I highly doubt we see one where you're only allowed to use one Sapphire. If it's only one Sapphire and all Emeralds, I'm telling you right now, the player to use is Derrick Rose. If it's one Sapphire and all Emeralds. I don't see that happening though. If we're looking at the Emerald tier, Badier is not bad for the duo. But really for Emeralds, Steph Curry's not awful. I will say that. He's got bronze range extender. Still got Steph's release though. I still got a couple of good badges and an 85 3-ball. So Steph is not actually bad to use if Emeralds are ever needed. Other cards that are not terrible are Myers Leonard. Myers Leonard, again, I think I've used him in one game on this gen. And he hit everything. Actually, no, I used him in my No Money Spent squad because I just didn't have any players. He can hit threes really well. And that's about it. He gets a couple of rebounds. He's not actually half banned, especially on next gen. He's not banned on current gen either. Thon, I don't like on either gen. Antonio Daniels is a card that I like. I like him a lot more than Bradley because Antonio Daniels comes with bronze clamps. As well as that, he's got not a great 3-ball, but his release is really good. But Clay is the obvious one. Emerald Clay is an obvious choice because the guy comes with silver range and bronze clamps and a decent 3-ball. So if you're needing emeralds, he's an obvious choice. And then last up are the two, when I say the most obvious people to put in if you need emeralds, it is these two guys right here. Two guys from the Possess set, Jared Jeffries and Jeff Green. Jeffries, his player build is nice, his release is nice, his stats aren't great though. But he is 6'11", can play at the 3. Gets in lanes really well. Jeff Green is definitely the best in him. Though, he's got good speed. Like, I've still occasionally used this guy in Unlimited and he's fine. He holds his own. Good release, good speed, good lateral quickness. All around good badges. The guy's got everything. Like, he's not a great card in Unlimited, but he can sometimes hold his own. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at for those two tiers. For the Ruby tier, the point guards, it's an obvious one. It's Fultz. The second point guard, it all depends on what you need. If you want a defensive player, get Chris Paul, who I don't have. If you happen to get Kyle Lowry in Season 1, Kyle Lowry and Fultz are by far the two best point guards at the Ruby tier. So, obviously, Lowry, only 7 gold badges, but his gold badges are one of them's clamps and one of his silver badges is range extender. So, he is really nice. Got a whole bunch of badges. Bronze flexible, good 3-ball, good speed, great defense. Kyle Lowry's definitely number 2. But if you weren't lucky enough to get Kyle Lowry, if you want offense, go to Trae Young over Steph Curry. Yes, he doesn't have Steph Curry release, but he does come with gold range. I would definitely suggest going for Trae over Steph. But Steph isn't the worst in the world, especially if you are on next gen. And then, other than that, I mean, Doc Rivers is okay, Pro 3 behind the back. If you want a defensive player, Chris Paul is probably the player to go for. Then we are on to the wings. And the Ruby wings, first of all, the number 1 option is always Nick Anderson. Guy plays defense, gets in lanes, and can shoot the ball. He is obviously the number 1 option for all Ruby cards. Like bronze clamps, gold range extender, he's the gold standard. And then the other wings at Ruby level, literally, they all do the same thing. There's about 50 cards that do the exact same thing. I mean, Bruce Bowen, a lot of people like Bruce Bowen. I like him as well as a 3-and-D guy, but he's not going to really create. If you want a pure 3-and-D guy, Bruce Bowen might be still the best at this stage. He's a card that actually, maybe not, but I like his release. I still like him. Reggie Williams, some people that are on the token board like him as well. I think Reggie Williams is a little more outdated now. If you want a just pure scorer, someone that will score from deep, Rex Chapman is pretty good because he's got gold range extender and gold quick first step. as well as a good 3-ball and good speed, but I don't like his release. Eric Gordon is still really good on offense. Doesn't have the badges, but he got silver range, and he's got really, really good speed. Like his speed is 92, so really nice. And then, again, there's a bunch of Matisse Thybulle, Gary Harris. There's probably other guys that I can't think of. Iman Shumpert, although Shumpert is actually a pretty good point guard if you want a defensive one as well. But like these are guys that have got all around good defensive badges and hit wide open jumpers. And that's basically it. That's basically what they do. Like Thybulle, Harris, Badier do the exact same thing. If you want to use Clay, you can. I probably wouldn't suggest it because he's very, very slow. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the wings. Big men at the Ruby tier. There's an obvious choice of power forward. Jonathan Isaac. Not like he's the best Ruby in the game. It's not even close. So I don't know. Like I'm talking about him, but it's just a no-brainer. Like it's a no-brainer for all these limited squad to have Jonathan Isaac in your collection. Then other power forwards. I mean, at the power forward position, I don't like any of them except Jonathan Isaac. Like as much as actually Silas is okay. Silas is alright. Like, he's a really, really good defender. I look at his defensive stats. Wow, they're terrible. Look at his defensive badges. That makes a lot more sense. He's got basically every defensive badge in gold. Yeah, Silas isn't terrible, but basically it's Jonathan Isaac. And then after Jonathan Isaac, give me Jeff Green over any of the other Ruby power forwards. And then at the center position for the Ruby tier, there's a few good players. There are a few. If you want someone to like run up and down the floor, to handle the ball a little bit, you can't go wrong with Thon Maker. If you just want a giant body, Sim Vular, but Vular or Taco, I don't really see the point. If you need a shooter, I would not go for LaFrance. I'd go for either Bargnani, who I still really think is good. Like a lot of people underrate the card. Or a Markkinen. If you don't want any defense, Bargnani plays a bit of defense. If you want more shooting than Bargnani with a bit less defense, Markkinen's actually a perfect player for that center position. And if you want a big body, there's another guy that I have not gone over yet that I really do rate. I really rate Dikembe Mutombo. I'm going to pick him up for my collection just in case there's a weird one where it's only Western Conference players and you have to use rubies. Or only Eastern Conference players. Then I just use Bargnani. I don't know what I'm even saying at this stage. But if there is any situation where you need a Dikembe Mutombo, this guy here is nice. Like for what he is. He's really good. Like he's a giant with some really nice gold badges. As well as that, he catches lobs really well. He's going to dunk really well, 90 block, and moderately good speed for a Ruby card. As well as obviously a huge player build with a massive wingspan. So a Dikembe is not a bad shout. So honestly, everyone kind of knows the Amethyst and above at this stage. So now we're going to talk about if you can only use one of a specific tier. So if we're going last week where you can only use one Ruby card, the one Ruby card you should always choose is Markelle Fultz. I'm telling you, do not waste your one specific card on someone that's not going to dominate. So Markelle Fultz carried me. He absolutely carried me through all of Limited. Like again, 8 rage quits, 2 other games. Markelle Fultz carried me. He was my best player. When you're looking at, again, with these tiers, you're looking for a guy that's going to carry you. When you are looking at the Amethyst tier, again, you are looking to be carried. So I use Hito because I'm on next gen and I just like Hito, but would I suggest Hito for most people? I'm going to say no. That's just a personal choice. One thing you don't want to do, and it's a really dumb thing that I saw a lot of people doing this weekend in Limited, and it was using the likes of Xavier McDaniel. Someone that's just a spot-up shooter defensive player as one of your like set players. Make sure it's someone, again, especially if it's one Amethyst, one Ruby, and the rest Sapphire. You better make sure these Amethysts are guys that are capable of dropping 25 points in a game. So guys that I would like in that type of scenario, Steve Francis works. I'm not the biggest fan of the card. Actually, no, I am a very big fan of the card. It's just he's been outclassed by Chris Paul. But Steve Francis definitely works in that scenario. If you are on next gen, and it might sound crazy, if you are on next gen, Eddie Curry is freakishly good with his spin dunks and super speed. Like, he's awful current gen, so don't get me wrong. If you're not in current gen, do not use him. But if you plan on just cheesing people, then Eddie Curry wouldn't be bad if it's only one Amethyst. Honestly, don't waste on an AK or a Bailey Howell or a Googs or something like that. Don't even waste on a Bingo who's a cone. D'Angelo Russell's, if you're on current gen, he's someone that can take over a game by himself. I think, was it 2 weeks ago in Limited, where you could only use one Amethyst and it was all rubies? And the Amethyst that I used was D'Angelo Russell, and he was just taking over games by himself. Curry slide, good release, can speed glitch into peak 3-point shots. He's a nice player on current gen. On current gen, Sean Kemp again. Sean Kemp does on current gen what Eddie Curry does on next gen. If you just want a point center cheese, I'd use him. I would not, as much as I think that you could argue that Drew Holiday is the best of all these cards in general. I still don't think for this purpose he fits particularly well. He's an overall good card, and if it's a case where Amethyst is the lowest tier you can use, Drew Holiday is perfect. And Chris Paul, if you need one Amethyst card, could work quite well on both gens. So again, actually I probably should go, because I don't think it'll be lowest tier Diamond anyway. Lowest tier Amethyst, you're looking at getting Chris Paul in your collection. Honestly, you probably should get a solid Amethyst lineup in your collection just in case. So Chris Paul, Gerald Wallace, Xavier McDaniel, Drew Holiday if you've already got him. A Siakam, having him in there is not too bad. Kemp, obviously it's a no-brainer to have Kemp in your collection. Ibaka if he's cheap. AK holds his own. So if you can honestly make a nice Amethyst lineup, that then you can, if it says say one diamond, one pink diamond, and the rest Amethyst, you can go and then just add the diamond and pink diamond. For the diamond tier, if you can only have one diamond, I think there's an absolute no-brainer. If you can only have one diamond, the one diamond is someone you're going to have to run your team around, and it's Rudy Fernandez. Like, absolute no-brainer. If you have Zion Williamson, he's not a bad shout either. On next gen, Thurl Bailey mightn't be a bad shout, but I reckon Rudy Fernandez, even over Zion Williamson, I would take Rudy Fernandez over all them. Pink diamond, just an out-and-out scorer. An out-and-out scorer. Don't do something dumb like taking an Iverson or something. Or do something dumb like a Bobby Jones. But there are so many. Like Kobe works, J.R. Smith works, Paul George works. There's so many. Just make sure it's somebody you can score a lot of points with. And then Galaxy Opal, as long as it's not Bill Walton. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. These are players that you kind of need to have in your collection for MyTEAM Limited. What I would advise you guys to do is literally make these teams over the next week or two. Make yourself a Ruby team. Make yourself a Sapphire team, a Ruby team. Maybe not an Emerald team, because I don't see Emeralds being used too much. Make yourself a Sapphire team. Make yourself a Ruby team. Make yourself a Diamond team or Amethyst team, and then Diamond and Pink Diamond. Like, look, that doesn't matter because there's so many good cards. Just make yourself a solid team of all those players that you feel like you can compete with. And then on any given week, if it's say one diamond, one pink diamond, you just add the 1 to 2 players from the higher tiers onto said team. So anyway, yeah, that is pretty much it. A bit of a weird video, but a lot of people are being caught out with Limited. I will say that a lot of people are always being caught out, and it's the fact that like Sapphire cards last weekend went so expensive. Like, Sapphire cards legitimately were going for like 7-8k. I think I sold my Chris Bosh for like 6-7k, and I bought a bunch. Like, I discarded Bosh's because he was going for 800 coins at one stage. There were so many of them on the market, he was going for discard value. So it's better to be ahead of the curve. Like, I've never purchased a player from MyTEAM Limited apart from, I think I purchased Matt Barnes for, I think I might have bought Matt Barnes when my money spent and then sold him back. But other than that though, especially on this account, I've just used the cards that I've had. And if you can get a good collection of usable low tier cards and keep those cards, you are always going to be more than competitive in Limited. And you are always going to be better equipped to play them out. Because it's a weird one. If you aren't prepared for Limited, prepare to spend. Fail to prepare to spend. That's all I'm going to say. A good Limited lineup costs a whole bunch during the weekend of Limited and is so cheap outside the weekend of Limited. And if you know what you're doing and buying good cards of every tier, you won't need to spend extra for a good Limited lineup. You will already have one. So anyway, yeah, that is pretty much it. Apologies if you guys know all this, and if you are like a seasoned player, these are the type of videos that are really mainly geared towards the lower tier players, and even some of the middle tier players who play this game on occasion. So anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.